Hello, 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 everybody. We're gonna move right along with the rest of the program. So today we're gonna be talking about time of use rates and how it's going to be affecting the utility industry going forward. And for that, I would like to bring up my two panelists, Harish and Scott. Give them a round of applause as they join me on stage.
Hello. Can you hear me?
For those of you that I haven't talked to or you haven't seen any of my other stuff, I'm Dylan Lockwood. I'm senior editor at Zpryme. But enough about me. I will turn it over to my panelists to introduce themselves. Harish, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Again, hello everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Harish Raju, part of Smart Energy Water, based out of our Irvine headquarters. Again, been involved with utilities and digital customer engagement for quite some time now. So again, really looking forward to the discussion today.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces, meet some new faces. These are all the people who understand it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I like all the marathoners who are still out there. We've lost some sprinters, but that's okay. I am co-founder and chief customer officer for GridX. We have a rates platform, a cloud-based rating and billing engine that we use for a number of use cases, including supporting time of use programs for a number of the largest North American utilities. And look forward to having that discussion today, picking up on a lot of the themes I heard earlier today, and appreciate both Zpryme and SEW putting this together and having us on the panel today. Look forward to the discussion.
Well, I appreciate having both of you here. So, let's start with the groundwork. How are rates changing in the utility space, and why are they looking at time of use right now?
I can start. Happy to. I think for most people in the audience, you understand that traditionally rate making in the utility industry was meant as a sort of math accounting exercise to recover the cost to run the utility and a return on the investment required to fund the utility. And you sort of did an exercise about how much energy you were going to sell and how much it would cost to sell that energy, and then put a price tag on that to recover based on how many kilowatt hours you sold that would enable the utility to run their business. But of course, we know that's changing now. Rates actually have more of a function than just a cost recovery mechanism. We're using rates to incentivize certain behaviors that you heard about from Brian and Electra. They're doing a lot of innovative programs around changing customers' behaviors. Time of use rates, of course, we're using price signals to incentivize behavior and usage at different times of the day to match the changing supply curve. So I think this is one of the big drivers about why we're seeing new rates, time of use rates, is really to both remain this cost recovery mechanism to be able to run the utility, but also think about when utilities recover the costs is more important and becoming more and more important as we continue to change.
No, absolutely. And in addition to that, just even in the previous session, right, it was just amazing to understand the ability to get the data and to be able to measure it and be able to assign a value to that, based on the time of use. That's where the value really comes in as well. So.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So Harish, how are these new rate strategies? How are they set up? How are they How are they managed? And what's always front of mind?
Yeah. No. And again, Scott and I have had great discussions on this, and we can talk for hours. But in a simplistic sense, right? If you really think about rate design, you need to take a holistic approach, right? You can't just have this done in a silo by a certain rate analyst, but rather you have to take into account the impact on the grid, the customer demand, as well as the utility's own rate case and other benefits as well. So that's where, that's where leading to a platform-led approach, a system like what GridX has built together with the analysis tool, where you can expose that, consume that endpoint across different systems of record. That's where the value really comes in, because then you can start doing very exotic rate designs. We work in a lot of international markets, so there, especially from a retail energy point of view, you're competing. It could be almost there's been a lot of references to the telecom industry. So think of exotic rate plans where you can have add-ons and you can have exotic time of use that becomes very interesting. So the rate design becomes a very complex and dedicated effort as well. Scott, I'm sure you can add to that.
Yeah, I think the idea of rate strategy and the idea of rate design in general is probably one that, as you say, Harish, we could debate a long time. And I think that's certainly if we polled the audience, they'd have a lot of different opinions about what is the right way to design rates. Certainly we see in time of use rates, for example, this idea of cost causation. So your time of use period should match the cost of procuring power in those time periods. But what we see often is in that case, you have small differences then between your on-peak and off-peak price signals to customers. And oftentimes, that's not enough to actually encourage them to change their behaviors. So you may need to, as you think about these strategies and how to work with customers and how you, thinking of this WE3, engage, educate customers, try and get them to change, do you go away from some of the typical rate strategies that are more strictly economic based to think about more behaviorally based rate strategies, take an on-peak period that's very, very high to get customers' attention, to get them to stop using energy or lower the amount of energy they're using at the point when the system can generate the most benefit from doing that. And I think those are the things that I'm hearing from this group in the audience, from our customers. They're thinking about these different strategies. How do we do this to ultimately achieve what we want to achieve in terms of our net zero goals and decarbonization and electrification?
Yeah, great example is, I don't see Brad here, but Brad has this great story, right? So he's actually a SDG&E customer, and he was on a typical regular time of use rate plan. But then Brad has an electric vehicle, he has his Tesla, he used to go home and he used to charge his vehicle during, it turns out to be around 6 p.m., which is like peak time of use time frame, right? So he was actually able to switch from a regular TOU plan to a TOU EV plan, where when he shifted his energy electric charging to midnight, he got a discount on his rate and he was actually able to lower his bill as well. So it's like, it's not just providing, guidance on what's off-peak and on-peak, but rather being able to detect those profiles, right? Doing that non-intrusive load disag, and maybe even recommending some proactive options to switch to different TOU rates is where you're going to start seeing a lot of adoption as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the ways in which you touched on this already? But what are some of the ways in which net zero plays into this whole discussion of time of use rates?
So, when Paul from SMUD talked about, right? I mean, SMUD has this great vision of like not only net zero but also absolute zero. Right? So, and the key fundamental criteria to be able to achieve that, be it net zero or be it absolute zero, it's the ability to measure your usage and consumption. And TOU is core and fundamental to that whole paradigm as well. So, it's a core component of that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and there will be a little talk later from my boss. I don't want to step on a lot of his punchlines. He'll be up here after lunch today, really talking about this issue at great length. But yes, I think, as I said before, changing customers' behaviors in a way that matches up with what we need to do on the supply side to reach net zero goals is really what's happening with rate design today and why it's so important to engage and educate customers. And maybe they don't need to hear the message necessarily that they're saving the planet. Just letting them know they have the opportunity to save money often is enough to get them to change their behavior. For many customers, in fact, that's all they want to know. And so I think that's really important to reach these goals, and will become more important as we get to 2030, 2040, et cetera.
So I admit this wasn't in my outline, but it's something I just thought of. So to do this, there's, I think, a lot of different kinds of data you need. Like, it's not just like the meter data. There's like some CIS stuff in there, I assume. So like, what kind of data infrastructure is necessary for this to work in the way that we want it to work?
Well, certainly I heard earlier, I don't remember who was talking about it on the panel, this idea of personalization. And in this case, really, time of use rates is a great example of personalized data, really matters. We typically, when we're working, probably have a very similar data set that SEW has for their SEM applications. We're getting the usage data, we're getting customer data that lives in the CRM or the CIS. and we use billing data. And we use that to tell customers not just a generic answer. Those of you in the industry, probably have seen these press releases, either when a utility files their rate case or after a commission approves it. The first line of the press release says the average customer's bill will go up $3 or $5 or whatever it is. And most people don't know if they're an average customer, so they don't know, does $3 or $5 apply to me? And for those of you who manage customer organizations, you probably don't know who your average customer is as well. So using the data, the interval data, all the smart meter investments we've made as an industry, let's use that data to provide personalized analysis to customers. Find out if the average for a utility is a $5 or $3 increase. Does that mean there's a bunch of customers whose bills are going to go up 20% and another bunch whose bills are going down 20%? When we average that, there's an average customer or a lot of the customers there. So using that data to look at and understand every customer's impact, how they're impacted by new rates, new programs, new options, and then again, coming back to the WE3, engaging with them, educating them, and empowering them with this information is really powerful to make these programs successful.
Yeah, and as the industry matures, right, one of the things that you'll start seeing is that there'll be aggregation at maybe the utility level or maybe at the state level as well. So you'll soon start seeing in the future, the ability where you can actually mature these options and these programs and actually offer those energy use reports and recommendations based on your consumption, your time of use rates versus what's available in the market. And that'll also lead to a lot of behavioral changes as well, as customers better understand how they use energy as well.
That's right.
So before we get into before we get into the strategic stuff, I just wanted to know if we had any initial audience questions, if any of you are interested in time of use rate stuff. No? Oh, someone's pointing. Way over there. Sorry, there's a podium in the way.
Yeah.
You want to start?
Maybe I can take a stab at it, Scott. So great question. Thank you, Stephen. So basically, if you think about it, as your energy profile expands, right? We're talking about now, having a lot of energy efficient appliances. E-mobility is a big deal as well. Plus, you're talking about, just yesterday and today, we talked about behavioral DR, demand response, right? And right now, if I go to California ISO application, it'll tell you the current load and demand, right? Eventually, everybody will be part of that ecosystem. And one of the things that within SEW, we talk about this all the time, right? I, as a customer, I have a lot going on in life, right? I have to worry about my kids, and not just my grandmother, but even I myself, I have no time, right, to consciously think about it. That's where that next best action, the proactive outreach recommendation, the prescriptions that we can provide through the infrastructure is going to be key so that it can still be transparent. So all customers care about is they want to be in the best possible plan and they want to be most efficient in the use and have a low bill, right, at a high level. So if we can tie that in with the data that comes from TOU and then offer them the best plan and advise them, that's where the opportunity is, versus just providing the tools and wishing the best of luck to customers. Not many of them are going to do that, right? You need to make it easy and you have to do the thinking on their behalf, right? And that's where letting your grandmother know that there's a better plan for you and she just knows that they'll help her save some dollars and cents. Maybe that's a first step for those type of customers. But now with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, maybe they want to be more in control. They want to do their own analysis. So you want to provide the tools as well. So you have to cater to all the different types of customer segments as well.
Maybe I'll just add, Harish, I think implied in your question, how do we know whether people care or they don't care is, I think implied is most people don't care, or they don't pay attention to their utility bill, which is probably true, and I think is the challenge for all of us in this room as we think about trying to make the clean energy transition happen. It is going to change a change in customers' behavior. So maybe we do that directly. Maybe we offer pricing plans and rates and programs. But as you say, who's going to pay attention? Will they pay attention? Again, I think that's our big challenge. Certainly, why we're really excited to work and partner with SEW. They build great platforms to engage and educate customers, and we think our data can be very interesting and insightful. And even if customers don't care about energy, they don't want to think about it, I think a lot of customers do think about their bill. They do look at their bill. And so being able to provide cost impacts to customers, again, personalized cost and rate impacts to customers so that they can understand, can I save money on this? I don't want to know anything more than that, but can I save money and figure out a way to get that to them where they live? I heard about TikTok today. We know SEW has great mobile apps, right? People want to be on their phone. So getting this relevant information that's personalized to the customers where they want to see it is so important to change behaviors and make things happen. I think the other thing I heard earlier, at least alluded to in these earlier conversations, is devices will probably play a part in this, right? We're going to turn over decision-making to smart chargers, to smart plugs, and we're going to be able to send prices to these devices, prices to devices. We're involved in a couple of pilot programs starting in 23 and 24 in California on real-time pricing programs related to both vehicle-to-grid and commercial EV fleets. And we're working with our utility partner in Northern California, not the one that was here today, but the IOU that surrounds them are doing some really unique stuff. We're going to be sending those price signals out to those devices so that their behavior does not have to be dictated by somebody who doesn't care about energy, who doesn't think about it all day, but is willing to set an algorithm that says if the price is above or below, I will buy or sell accordingly. And that's going to be also a very important way for us to manage the transition. And those will be versions of time of use rates. Real-time pricing is a time-varying version of a time of use rate. So I think that's excellent question. And I think it's all of our challenge to figure out how do we get that massive customer change, behavior change, if customers don't really care about this stuff.
That's always important to keep in mind is how the impetus is on the utility, on the industry there to get to the customer, not for the customer to come to you and let you know what the program is. Thank you for that question. Do we have another audience question by chance? Well, seems like everyone's good. So my next question that I had was, based on the utilities that you've worked with and the experiences you've had, what are some strategies for creating a successful rollout of a time of use rate program?
Yeah, let me comment on that, Scott. So when you engage with customers and you want to roll out new rates, right? It's always a disruption to their daily lives, right? Because they may have a certain bill that they're used to seeing every month, and they may have seen certain parameters. And suddenly, when you roll out a new TOU rate, or even in general a rate plan, there's always going to be that disruption, and there could be that friction. So utilities, that's something that within SEW we spend a lot of time. That it's not sufficient to just provide relevant experiences, but rather that proactive outreach, the minus 120 days, minus 90 day, minus 60 day, outreach and communication. I was a SDG&E customer for a long time, and when SDG&E went to a TOU plan, I actually saw jingles on TV, right? I listening to the radio, I had radio ads, and of course emails and text messages and phone calls. It's very important to bring the customers along when you're rolling out new TOU rate plans or even rate cases, and even do informational videos if needed, describing the benefits and the opportunities with all of these new rate plans as well. So technology, of course, is important, but it's equally important to focus on the business transformation as well and the customer experience. And that's where, again, having those proactive outreach campaigns, marketing initiatives really helps in reducing the friction and adoption challenges as well. Yeah. Scott? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I really like that question. Thanks for asking it. It's too bad. I think Paul Lau had to leave from SMUD because they're certainly an example of a utility who did it very well, and I would say very successfully. We're happy to support them in some elements. Certainly there's others here, I think, that have successfully rolled out time of use programs. What we have seen, and certainly SMUD is a great model of that, is sort of 3 periods that really do also capture this, the WE3, this educate, engage, empower. We certainly see a period from whenever your regulator or board or whoever it is that decides that your utility is going to offer a time of use rate. In that, between that period and when you put customers on the time of use rate, that's what you alluded to, Harish, really flood the market with education, give customers personalized rate analysis so they understand this new rate is coming. If you continue to use energy in the way you have been, this is how your bill would be impacted. For some customers, that might be a benefit. For some customers, it might be a negative surprise. So getting that out in front of them, broadcasting what that peak time period is, really educating your customers, make them ready and aware that this is coming is so important because, as we just heard, there's a lot of skepticism about, do customers pay attention? Do they care? Will they know? You have to try really hard to break through and let them know this is coming. And then, of course, there is the onboarding experience, the day, the month you decide we're going to move our customers to time of use. That's when you have to really think about the customer experience. Send them an onboarding letter. Let them know a welcome letter. Let them know this is going to happen. They may have missed all of your months and months of educational trying to get through to them. They still might not have heard you. So try again as they're about to be transitioned to a rate plan so that they understand and they feel like they're thought of and taken care of as they do that. And then, of course, the post period, even once they're enrolled, you might have tried now for 8 months, a year, multiple years to let them know this is coming, and they still don't get it. And when they finally understand they're on the time of use rate is the first hot month in the summer, when they get that first time of use bill and they realize something has changed because last year I spent $100 and this year it's $200 or something to that effect. And that's when they're going to really notice that they're on a time of use rate, even if they haven't all along. So you have to be prepared for that moment. You have to be prepared in your call center. You have to have online self-service tools so customers can understand and look back and see, well, in the spring and the shoulder months, I actually saved $30 or $40. I kind of forgotten that or just thought I was being good at saving energy and help them through that. So it really is a before educational process. Onboarding, care and feeding, and then a post period. Yep. And that's what we've seen really successful time of use utilities that have rolled out successful time of use programs do.
Yeah, no, Scott, you bring up a good point, and it's something that we tend to forget, right? We always are so obsessed and focused on the customer, we forget about the utility and their team members, CSRs. Yeah. So it's equally important. As Scott mentioned, to provide the tools to even the utility staff members and team members to be able to provide that 360-degree view, right? And for example, at Southwest Gas, right, they are almost a 3 million customer utility. Even today, they have been live for almost 2 years now on our platform. They still have a widget with how do you read your bill, video available, right? This is 2 years post. Same thing with SDG&E. They actually gave an offer. When I switched to TOU with SDG&E, I had a 1 year of basically rollback. I could choose to see what my TOU rate would be on an annual basis, right, the cost, and I could choose to go back to my tiered rate after a year if I found that the cost was higher for TOU. So there are many intervention strategies that are available to soften that transition and to make it simple. And over time with your education,
yep.
As you mentioned, it really, I think, drives home. Yep.
And the great thing, all of these tools and your data is all available. You've invested in smart meters and AMI and your digital vendor partners like SCW, and all of this stuff is available and easy to leverage for your customers. And if we all take a very customer-centric point of view, this can be accomplished and really be successful. I think people look at time of use rates as something that makes utilities nervous. Well, my customers are going to get high bills. They're going to be mad at me. It really can be an opportunity, right? We think about the low to moderate income LMI customers. This is an opportunity for you to engage with them to say, now you have some control over your bill. You can actually choose high periods and high cost periods, low cost periods of when to use your energy. Most customers feel like they don't have any control over the bill because they don't have choices. They pay some flat rate for every kilowatt hour. Time of use actually can be an opportunity to make your customers feel like you're giving them choice and options, and make them feel as though you're their ally, not just somebody who's there to send them a bill every month.
So one thing that this makes me wonder is, what other kinds of processes or programs or operations that this kind of thing can enable down the line? Like, are time of use rates sort of a stepping stone to broader data applications?
Well, I don't know about data applications, but certainly I think we kind of think they're the little bit of the gateway drug, right? Time of use is a nice way to get people to think about new ways, new business models, new ways that their utility is going to charge them. Certainly you mentioned EV rates or a different version of that. I talked about real-time pricing. We can think about it allows customers to now maybe become more interested in things like demand response programs. All of these things that are really, as I talked about, meant to change customer behavior over time. The more we get customers thinking about different ways to buy their electricity, maybe they'll start thinking about solar and ways to actually get credits from their utilities. So we think time of use drugs are just a real initial step for customers and utilities on this path to net zero and to changing our supply to get them interested in all kinds of other offers.
No, absolutely, Scott. And if you really think about it, right, we tend to also, when we think of TOU, we only think about residential customers, right? But a significant consumer of energy are all of your non-residential customers as well, just to give a perspective, right? So your CNI customers, it could be your government facilities and beyond. So by actually being able to provide this data, and then even in the previous session, Bhartendra, you asked about standards. We have green button and whatnot, and to extend that notion of that gateway drug, right? Because once you're able to measure and quantify, it enables a whole set of data opportunities, right? Beyond data applications, And Eric yesterday talked about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And I was like amazed, because I think along the same lines, because the first step in Maslow's hierarchy is survival. That's your raw data, but then you go towards fulfillment. And then finally, you go to enlightenment, right? So as you start leveraging the data, you have access to the interval data. In Australia now, they've gone to 5-minute interval data, right? And once you start thinking about distributed energy resources, solar, virtual power plants, TOUs think of it as essentially the currency that essentially enables all of those use cases to be able to, even the capital markets, the way you're going to price it, dynamic pricing, you name it, it's all going to be driven from TOU. So it's just, we're barely scratching the surface right now within the industry because people are just recovering from being able to get access to smart data, let alone harness the power of smart data. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should. I know we have the former commissioner from Hawaii here, and for those of you who read the trade press, you know that Hawaii just approved a first of its kind TOU program. So congratulations. I don't know how involved you were, but I hope you were working behind the scenes there. That's a really exciting development, and we expect more states to do that. So congratulations for the state of Hawaii and its customers there as well.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes up a lot at these conferences.
I thought I was so intelligent that only I thought about it, but apparently it's not unique as I thought it was.
Also, Lorraine doing a good job also comes up at these conferences a lot, so we all like her. We've only got like a short minute left. Does anyone have a lingering question for our panelists while we've got them here?
Yeah, a bit of an obscure question that was just floating around my mind as you were talking, which is, if we assume that the customer is the notion of a customer is the consumer who sees the bill in a household, so they're the ones that are motivated by time of use rates, being able to save cost, etc. But if you think about the average household might have 2 adults and 2 children, so 4 consumers. That's right. I'm generalizing massively, of course. Imagine 4 consumers. There's 3 consumers in that equation which are not getting the information that you're talking about. Yep. So my question to you, which is which is, I'm just trying to sort of put you on the spot, is how would you sell this concept to a group of 10-year-old consumers in a classroom, maybe? Because it's a fantastic concept.
Yeah.
But how would you sell it? How would you sell it to the heart rather than the mind of a household accountant?
Yeah, no, I can tell this personal story. So I have 2 boys. I have a teenager, 14 years old, and it's act of God trying to get any thought across, right? But actually, we, as a household, right, we actually, once we got into the TOU plan, and I was always curious about why is my water bill so high, right? Going back to George, the session yesterday, right? Because we think of water, hot water, as just a water aspect, but we didn't realize that the heating that goes in to that as well. And when we saw the breakdown of our consumption of usage of gas and electric, right? We realized that actually most of the charges were coming from basically the long showers that someone in our household was taking on a regular basis, or multiple times a day, apparently, right? So, we had that conversation, and obviously it took some time to register, but over time, right, by just reducing the number of showers and by basically, then I was able to show in subsequent bills, listen, we actually were able to save, $50 or whatever the dollar amount is, and using that as some kind of incentive. Okay, as you continue to optimize your use, the teenager gets some, goodies and some Robux or any other digital currency, right? So it's a great question, and I think that's something that you can actually enable through the data that's available, and then being able to quantify it to actions, and then seeing the benefits of those actions.
I know we have to finish here, but it's a great question, George, because my wife, for me in particular, my wife accuses me regularly of acting like a 10-year-old. And I don't think she means that as a compliment. But I do remember my 10-year-old, when my kids were 10-year-old, they were rule followers, actually. I don't know if it's an accounting thing, but they, and maybe this is not your point, but I have found that kids really love rules. If you can tell them what the rules are, and they don't have to know why, they just like to know, like, no turning on the lights before this time, or no running the dishwasher, or turn off your computer at that time. Yeah, I think there are ways to do it. I get your point, but I think there are certainly ways. Every family does it a little differently, but I know that kind of thing worked in our house.
I need to get some tips from you on how to set rules and have them follow them. Thank you. Thank you all for the time.